Hello, everybody. Welcome to the WREVA second annual. This month now, so it's not annual, really. I guess it's monthly. The WREVA monthly WREVA news with myself, Mark Hogland, and of course my co-host, Mr. Ian Graham, has joined us as well. How are you today, Ian?
Pretty good. This is the self-isolating, stay-at-home edition of WREVA News.
Yes, I'm definitely more than 6 feet apart from Ian today. So, so we got some great comments from the last video. So we decided to do another video. We've collected some news over the past month, and we'll go through that and share it with you. If you guys have any comments, please put them in the section below. Please give us a thumbs up on YouTube and let us know how you like this little production. So today what we're going to start with is it turns out that as of yesterday, it happens to be my Volt-iversary. And what you may ask is that? Well, I bought a Chevy Volt 3 years ago yesterday, and just wanted to run through some stats of the car after 3 years of use. So got some recent photos as of just a couple nights ago. So the car still looks very good. Not lots of shine on that car. Now, I haven't even put a wax on that car yet. It looks phenomenal for what it's done. Right now we're sitting at about 44,000 kilometers after 3 years. So looking good. And the stats, even more impressive, is over 44,000 the lifetime of the vehicle. I'm sitting at a lifetime gas burning of 0.3 liters per 100 kilometers. That equates into something like 830 miles per gallon, if you were to work it out that way. So it's been very good. I think I've burnt a total over the 3 years. I usually burn about a quarter tank a year. You know, maybe a full tank over 3 years with some travel I've done. The car itself, I've had a couple of issues I had to take into the dealership for repair under warranty. I had a shift to park issue that the car wasn't registering that the car was being put into the park. And they had to replace the gear shift to fix that. And I also had a gradual dimming of the infotainment screen over a couple days, and then it went blank. So I took it in for that. They replaced the entire infotainment screen and whatever's behind it, the chipset or whatever's attached to the infotainment screen. They replaced it as a unit. And those are the only two issues I've had with the car. So it's been pretty painless. And as I said, those were covered under warranty. So very, very happy with the car. And I look forward to more years of use.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was quite impressed. There's the front gauge showing you that we're getting close to 44,000 kilometers. One other thing I wanted to touch upon is that there is a system called voltstats.net. If you own a Chevy product and you still have OnStar connected, you have the ability to sign up to this free service. And what you're able to do is you can plot your Volt or Bolt or Spark EV or whatever Chevy electric product you have, and it will track the people that have signed up for this free service. And what it does is it basically sends the service through Chevy. It sends them twice daily your mileage and how far you've gone, and it tracks the stats of the car. So just for those that don't know, Chevy sold about 170,000 of the Volts in North America in its operating time between 2010 and 2019. And you can see them spread out across the map. And if we zoom in here a little bit, You can see that it's kind of cool to see the density in different areas, like the Chicagoland area obviously is quite busy. Detroit area and Southern Ontario has quite a pocket as well. And then there's the different colors of green on these markers indicate how much electricity you've driven on compared to gasoline. So the brighter the green, the more green the car has been. So you can see this really bright green arrow here near the Kitchener area. And if I was to click on it, oh, look at that. That's me. So there's my car registered. And you go into a stats page where it shows you the name that you've given your car, and you can see the different stats. So you'll notice that one of my good stats here is that I've driven it almost 97% on EV over the lifetime of the car. So that equates to about, and this is of course is in miles. So you got 27,000 total miles driven. You've got 26,000.3 EV miles. So about 850 miles is all the gasoline traveling I've done in this car since I've owned it. So, and then of course you've got the Hall of Fame over to the right where it tracks your stats as you're putting them in and shows you how far you've ever driven on EV and over a 24-hour period and all sorts of fun little things. So anyone can log on to this site, which is voltstats.net, and you can check out the maps and click and look at different things. And you have the ability, of course, to go to the different leaderboards and such. But if you have a car, you can actually register for free and you can participate in it as well. So I thought I would share that today as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we'll switch back control here. And there we go. Have I got it off the screen, Ian?
Yep, that looks
Very
good.
good. Okay,
all
so
right.
Ian's got a deck for us to go through as well.
All right. Start screen sharing. And you're seeing that okay?
It has just come up, yes.
There we go. Okay, so our monthly electrifying news. And yeah, congrats on the Volt stats and that. I had a Volt as well, a 2015. In fact, Mark, just a quick little story. In July of 2015, I think it was, or June of 2015, I was working, renovating a home, and basically on my Twitter feed on my phone came up WREVA, and that they were going to Hamtramck to see where the Volt is actually produced. And I thought, I need a day off and a break. So I went down with Mark, and I think it was at least 5 other of you, at least from the Kitchener area. I know.
Oh yeah, there's probably 6 or 7 of us that day. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was it was great to meet a bunch of other Volt owners and then go to the factory and get the tour. And long story short, 2 weeks later, I had my 2015 Volt upgraded. A 1994 GMC 3500 one-ton van that ran on vegetable oil to electric. But yeah, it was a great car. I really enjoyed that car, and you know, the whole electric and then the gas aspect. I mean, I couldn't go full electric at that time just because of some travel commitments that I would had to have done. Of course, that's not a problem today, but no, I love the whole challenge of like, how far can you go on electric before it switches over to gas? And, you know, I would put it into neutral and going down the hill that goes towards Milton.
Exactly. It became a big competition at all times. And
Yeah.
What I may mention to the audience that's watching is if you haven't ever purchased an electric vehicle to this point, just to let you know that, you know, Volts that are 3 years old coming off lease can be had now for about somewhere between 22 and 26,000 at used locations, or your Chevy dealer can get them as well. So if you have interest in getting involved in an EV, it's a great gateway drug to get involved with electric vehicles.
Yeah, that totally, and that's exactly it. It is a gateway, you know, because you're you know, it's fun vehicle to drive, and it does really give you an idea of what electric can do for you. So all right, so the first thing, what you shouldn't do with any vehicle is crash into a charging station.
So
So
this is a drive-through charging station now, right?
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the idea, like, you know, where you kind of drive over it and it's supposed to put your charge up into the batteries, you know, like those. Yeah, I don't know.
So this
But
is, of course, that KSI DC Fast Charger on Hespeler Road in Cambridge, and unfortunately, it was taken out recently by a car, and that unit is, of course, going to require replacement. It's not repairable, and KSI hasn't really said anything about time frame or if it would be within a certain frame or not. But they did report upon its decommissioned,
yeah,
as you can see here in the photo.
yeah. So, well, you know, the cables are still there. They, I can see the you know, the green black cables. So, you know, I just got to put a new one on. You know, plug her in. Away you go. But you know, it's interesting again though. Like the last you know, virtual EV news that we did was showing the superchargers in London and Kitchener, and I got a chance to take some pictures of what the insides of some of that charger is, and you can see on the right hand of the picture, like, you know, the electronics and that. These things are not simple. It was amazing to see. Actually, there's quite a complexity to these chargers. It's not just a simple positive, negative ground, and, you know, oh, here's a limiter or anything like this to, you know, not overcharging your car. There's a lot to these things, and
Yeah.
it gives you an idea of why they are not cheap, you know. So
Yeah.
anyways, hopefully we get one of these back up soon enough. So on that. All right. Speaking of chargers, St. Jacob's Farmers Market. Yeah, there's 4 more chargers now at the Staybridge Suites and Holiday Inn. And I know the few times that I've kind of gone out there, there's at least 2 chargers down the street from this hotel.
Yep.
Yep, there's at least
actually
2 more.
there's actually 2 other sets as well.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is about this particular area in hotels, but there's 2 hotels being built right now. So you've got the Staybridge Suites, which is attached to the Holiday Inn, where the actual chargers are photographed, and then across the street you've got a new Hampton Inn being built as well. So it seems to be a popular location because that would be maybe the 4th or possibly 5th hotel that's going to be built on that road. So and they all seem to have caught on to some of their patrons have electric vehicles, because they all seem to put in some charging spots, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. So and you know, it's the hotel aspect of things is really, when you look at it, is really the perfect location to have chargers. And I can see more hotels having more charging stations, you know, overall, because as the transition kind of happens towards electric vehicles, road trips are a big thing. And it just makes everything that much more convenient. I think it's going to get to a point where hotels might be saying, like, well, we've already booked our, you know, 4 L2 spots, so sorry, you know, you're going to not be able to charge. But I could see that over time that's going to just keep adding up.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So speaking of road trips, Fleet Carma of Waterloo, which is actually, I would say, is more so Kitchener now. They got a new office location there, but they did a survey of 3,900 EV owners, and the interesting thing is they found with larger battery EVs, and in particular with the Model 3, is how EV customers will charge. So when you had shorter range batteries, say for example, like some of the original Nissan Leafs with 150, 180 kilometers of range, for the owner to come home and plug it in every night was pretty common, and it was consistent, I would say, that they would do that. Then the Model 3 comes around with a long range that does like around 500 plus kilometers. And I know it myself, talking to other Model 3 owners, like, when do you charge? And more of them are like every 2 to 4 days, sometimes once a week. because it's more or less like kind of filling up your car once a week with gas at 500 kilometers. So because of this, a shift in the market to long-range EVs as a result of electric cars charging faster and driving further. And of course, Chevy Bolt, another one, 400 plus kilometers, contributed to those changes. And then the Hyundai Kona and the Niro, I could see that happening as well. So because of this, the charging load from the drivers is getting pushed to off-peak hours, which is making things interesting for the utilities, which is Fleet Karma is great in terms of their information that they get. Is a lot of it is data that is being used by the utilities to help them give an understanding of how they can be impacted with electric vehicle charging.
Yeah, so the longer or the bigger batteries allow people to skip a number of days in a row and then charge up a longer period of time on a certain night. And of course, the utilities, if they're used to just getting those small charges per night, they may have a different type of load if 11 long-range vehicles charge up on one street.
Yeah, exactly. So these guys, I find they do some really cool information that is really beneficial for not only the utilities, but I think also for the electric car companies as well. Just kind of gives them some information of how their customers are charging their cars.
Yeah.
So So that being said, talking about long range, Tesla I think it was yesterday, released a new update for their Model S. And now it does 629 kilometers, or basically 400 miles of range. And one thing to note for anyone watching from Quebec, I noticed when I did the snapshot that the incentives are scheduled to change. So I'm not too sure what they're going to be changing to. Anyways, Mark, you were mentioning, though, the 400 miles wasn't quite EPA at first.
Yeah. When Tesla provided a car to the EPA to be tested for mileage, they already worked out what they believed the mileage figure was going to be, and they thought it should have been 400 miles. The EPA performed the test and came back to Tesla and said, no, it was only 392 miles. It's about a little bit short. And Tesla, surprised with that, decided to go back into the records of the car, because they can do that. They connected to the computer, they pulled information back from the car, and they discovered that the EPA had pulled the car inside their testing facility, left the driver's door open, and left the key fob on the seat. So the car was always in ready mode, ready to be driven, and it burned about 2% of the battery overnight as it sat there waiting for the next day for it to be tested. So Tesla provided that information to the EPA. The EPA offered to retest the car free of charge, and they came up with a higher mileage figure.
Yeah. So there you go. It's it's good that they were able to look back in their logs and see that type of thing, because I'm sure the engineers would not have been happy to see that their 400 miles that they've been working hard to get was not a reality. So
exactly.
But one thing, when I heard about this yesterday and seeing 629 kilometers of range, one of the arguments that I think all of us have heard is when it gets X amount of range, then I might consider it. And the Model S, of course, is not a cheap car. It's $100,000 plus car. But when you look at the other EVs like the Bolt and the Kona that are doing 400 plus kilometers, even at that, that's still a good long range for a trip. And of course, we all know as the weather gets warmer, we can drive further on those charges. But 629 kilometers to me is like, there's no excuse anymore. About the electric vehicle not being able to go far enough on a charge, because at that point, I'm sure that somebody, even with the best bladder, will still have to pull over
at some point.
Exactly. At some point, yeah. So, all right. This I drove by this yesterday, last night actually, to check this out. Mark had brought this up, and we found out from one of our members the megawatt battery storage. The amount was 2.47 megawatts. So this is Mitchell Plastics. It's in the south end of Kitchener, off of I'm trying to think what the block line.
Bleems.
Or Bleems. Sorry, Bleems. Yes,
Yeah.
off of Bleems Road. Towards the Fisher-Hallman area, so yeah, I went for a drive out there yesterday, and it's, as you can see, it's got a white fence all the way around it, and then you can see the little Tesla logos there. I can kind of move my mouse and sort of show the Tesla logos, but up here on the roof, this has become solar, and all these black cables here. You don't see it in here, but beside the pine tree going up is basically connected, as far as I can tell, to the solar array that they've got on the roof. So this, we're not too sure as of yet. We haven't talked to Mitchell Plastics to find out details of how they're using the battery storage. Is it just for backup, or is it to be used during, help with powering during the day? We're not too sure on that, I guess.
Yeah, it's and of course Simon from our group came up with a number of megawatt storage site there. Mitchell Plastics is more than just one manufacturer in Kitchener. They have multiple locations across North America, and it looked like from the website that a number of their locations they're doing this too. So maybe being able to benefit from the collecting energy, obviously from the solar, and being able to use it during higher peak hours is probably the plan.
Yeah. So, but really interesting to see that. I'm sure it's going to be interesting, the data and results that they get after, say, a year of use, to see what they've saved in terms of energy-wise, having the battery backup and storage and that. So, and with the solar as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right, Mark, I'll let you talk about this gentleman.
Yes, this is Robert Llewellyn from Fully Charged Show. If you have not seen it on YouTube, it's something definitely to look up. The Fully Charged Show, and has some interesting stuff. He's based in England, but he gets around. He's in North America a lot of the time, and all over Europe. Robert recently gave his review of his original Nissan Leaf after 10 years of ownership. Still owns the car, still is continuing to own it, uses it as a get-around car in his local area. And it's interesting to watch someone review their car 10 years after purchase. And obviously, the first generation Leaf doesn't get the same mileage as it used to get. Because it had some issues with the battery degrading over time. But Robert talks about that, and talks about its use case today and how it can be operated. But it's fantastic to see a 10-year-old EV still in use and still looking good. And he talks about his total maintenance spent, what he's spent on the car over those 10 years. And it's an interesting thing to take in and understand what owning an EV is like, and what the maintenance costs could be for you. So I would certainly suggest, if you got a few minutes, to watch this show and see what a 10-year EV looks like.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, it's about 17 minutes long from what I saw. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet myself. I will be doing that though. And of course, 10 years technology-wise, how much has changed in electric vehicles?
Yes.
But
quite a bit.
Yeah, but his the Leaf does look good still. Like looks like it's in really good shape. And yeah, Mark, you said you got 3 years on your Volt, so
Yep.
give another 7 here.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I've got no plans to get rid of it, so we'll see how long it goes.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, so this is an area that I find interesting, because we always talk about electric vehicles as land beholden. Basically, we're on the road, but we haven't really talked so much and looked at in terms of marine aspects, and for that matter, air. We have brought up a few cases, such as Harbor Air out of BC, which is converting their short-haul planes to electric. But in terms of boating wise, there have been a couple like the Maid of the Mist in Niagara Falls that we mentioned about. And I think I'm trying to think if it was Norway as well, that is doing some of their boats as well for becoming
Yeah, they're doing a hybrid system in Norway where they use mostly electric power on the crossings.
Yes, yeah. So now this company Evoy is European, and they just put out this 150 horsepower. Basically, it's the equivalent of 150 horsepower combustion motor. And if you've done boating, 150 horsepower. Yeah, you're going to be more than water skiing with something like that. It's I always find it interesting when you see these boats that are maybe I would say 18, 20 feet and have two of these 150, combustion motor horsepower wise on them. But anyways, the cool thing with this is it's 90 pounds. So I think in terms of boat motors, that's actually pretty darn light. It's of course equivalent of 150 horsepower combustion motor. It can do 90 kilowatts nominal and 150 kilowatts peak. And it's going to be selling their modular battery bricks, 50 or 100 kilowatts of storage. And with, the charging for AC and DC, and it shows, 11 kilowatts AC, 50 kilowatts DC. And so this is a whole another area that I think we're going to be seeing over time of interest for boat enthusiasts, and especially on there are lakes that have no gas motors allowed. And I've been actually doing some research because I've actually purchased 4 Tesla battery modules. They're 5.5 kilowatts each. And my idea for them is, one is to use them for a cabin up north that is off grid to begin with. It's already off grid with lead acid batteries, but those are, 10 plus years old. They definitely had their time. But the other possibility I've been looking at, and if you type in solar pontoon boat, and there's a guy in Michigan who used a quarter of a Chevy Volt battery with 4 solar panels. I'm not sure what the wattage of them are. But yeah, that's basically what is running his pontoon boat is these solar panels, Chevy Volt battery, and an electric motor. And yeah, if you do some searching online, you can find more of these type of things. So this is another area that it intrigues me. I'm quite interested in because these 4 Tesla battery modules I purchased is another possibility I'm looking at, is to do a solar pontoon powered boat. And in my case, I've been looking more at solar panels that are bifacial, which basically means they get power from not only the top of the panel, but reflections that will hit the bottom of the panel. So in terms of being out in the water on a nice sunny day, I'm sure I'm going to get more than enough power between the top and the reflection off the water to the bottom. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what marine-wise where we're getting into. Another other quick thing, just besides marine as well, is the snowmobile. There's a company in Quebec that's been doing some more release of information about their snowmobile. And one of the funny things that keeps coming up is about how quiet it is. So
Yeah.
yeah. So everything's becoming electrified one way or another. There's yep. It's really
more and more applications.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I don't see being electrified anytime soon is an ultralight, because an ultralight's just not going to be light with batteries on it. So that's going to be hard. I can see that being a little more difficult.
Yeah, maybe when the batteries come down in weight, or what's the solid state batteries? Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, solid state batteries, and for that matter, maybe the ultralight will have wings that are also solar panels. So yeah, there's lots of possibilities out there. Okay, this is a big one. Since we did our last online EV news with the price of oil, and basically oil going into the negative. And what's happening, of course, with this pandemic is nobody is really driving anywhere as much. And so oil is being produced, but nobody's really buying it. And then, of course, they have to then store the oil. And I've been hearing of freight liners basically having to take the oil and float out in the ocean, and at a cost of, thousands upon thousands of dollars just to store this, because it's not needed. And, and the one thing I love in some research that says, like, why don't they just cut back production? This is really similar to nuclear as well. You can't just shut it off and then restart an oil well. And nuclear is very much the same way. So that's part of the reason why, we've got this flow of oil going, and can't we just sort of put a tap on it? It's not so easy that way.
Yeah, amazing that the futures got to the point last week that they were negative. So people that bought the futures, 30 days previous, they attempt to make money on it, figure out that they're not going to make any money on it, so they try to dump the oil, find that the market's not buying it, and therefore the price just goes down and down and down, and then basically they're paying people to take the oil off their hands.
Mm-hmm. Now, I also posted this Twitter as well about May. And if you don't know anything about oil production in May is a lot of times when the oil companies will do maintenance on a lot of their refineries. And so this is also making things difficult, because, you've got to basically take this oil and do something with it.
Yep. Glad I don't have that problem anymore.
No, exactly. I'm just trying to figure out, like, over 3 years on your Volt, you said about how much gas have you put in it? What was the cost?
Basically a full tank over 3 years. So that's what 40 liters over 3 years.
Right. Wow. It's guys like you that are, not helping the oil companies. Oh, man. Anyways, speaking of gas and oil, when I came out to my studio to do tonight's broadcast, I set up a little, it's usually used for a piano keyboard, a stand, and I put a board on it, and I put my laptop on it. And I was looking for a board, and I forgot I came across this. When I built the studio, this board was actually found in the building. And I just started, before setting up, I started reading through some of the articles again, and I happened to notice, this is from 1958 in July, the four prices noted as gas war goes on. So back in 58, the different gas stations were having their own little battle, I guess. I'm not sure if this would have been just in Kitchener. I think it must have been, probably would have been across Canada or something, I would imagine. But gas was as low as 29.9 cents a gallon and as high as 36.9 cents. So, we're really happy when people were seeing, like, 65 cents. It's back up to 80 now, I think, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and interesting, in the paragraph says, before the price slashing went into effect, standard gasoline sold mainly at 44.9 cents a gallon.
Oh my gosh. A gallon, not a liter, a gallon.
Yeah, a gallon. Yeah, not a liter, but a gallon.
Yeah.
So anyone's really good with math can figure out what that is for a liter. I think it's negative territory at that point.
No, we 3.8 liters per gallon. So basically divided in 4. So 11 cents roughly.
Yeah, 11 cents a gallon. Wow.
A liter. 11 cents a liter.
A liter. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
A liter. Yeah. So. And so there you go. Your full tank, Mark, would have cost you how much?
Yeah, 1958.
Yeah.
Who says time travel is not possible? If you find a newspaper in your house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, anyways, that leads me to this. I say don't watch this documentary because I don't even want to give the name of the documentary. I'm sure many of you probably already have heard about this. It's sort of propped up by Michael Moore. He's like the executive producer for this documentary, which I don't even want to name the title of it because it was within, I would say, a quarter of the way through the movie. And I know it's not just me. because I had some friends who started watching it and then they paused it and called me and said, "Are they kidding?" So, anyways, this has caused a lot of controversial takes because it was released on Earth Day, and it goes after some of the environmentalists that are key, with the movement. But the key points, I guess, this is from an article that said, here's some key things that are definitely wrong with this documentary. And if you haven't watched it, and I apologize if I'm kind of giving this away to you, but they're basically some of the things that they're stating are that EVs are just as polluting as gasoline vehicles. Well, that myth has been debunked forever.
Countless times. Yeah.
Yeah. Union of Concerned Scientists have constantly debunked. And in a nutshell, what the documentary shows, and it's kind of funny because Mark has talking about his Chevy Volt, and especially with the amount of charging that he's done on it, 97% roughly. But it shows the footage from around, I think, 2010, of Chevy kind of showing their Volt. And the guy in the documentary kind of goes on, well, where is it being charged? And they kind of point to the charger, and then they mentioned the building. And then the guy said, you finally realize what the guy's talking about is that, oh, well, the power is coming from a coal plant. And you know what? 10 years ago, yeah, they definitely would have been, charged by a coal plant. The Union of Concerned Scientists basically found that even if a electric vehicle is charged by coal, it's centralized, and the efficiency of the electric motor compared to a gas motor, even if it's charged with coal, is still way less polluting than a gas vehicle. But the thing that's frustrating about this documentary as you watch it is the dated footage and the dated misinformation that they have. And of course, that's one of them. This is another one that really got me, and again, Simon as well, we were chatting about, is there's a comment at a solar panel in Renewable Energy Expo, and the guy, they asked how long do the panels last, and he said, it only lasts about 10 years. Well, that's actually ludicrous to say in this day and age, because the panels have a minimum 25-year warranty. In fact, I will even go as to say a minimum of 20-year warranty. I'll go lower. But they have that minimum warranty on them. And that warranty is meant to be that, for X amount of years, it will generate this amount of power. And at 25 years, it still will generate 85 to 90% of their power. So to say it only lasts 10 years, right away, anyone who knows solar knows that that's ridiculous. And the other thing they show is there's a field of solar panels, not a huge field. There's not really actually many of them. And the guy says that they only have 8% efficiency. And again, this is coming back from 2010. So the guy that produced this documentary has been doing this documentary for a long time. In fact, it sounded like he wanted to release it in 2012. But he's been, so to speak, working on it all this time. How much wind and solar does Germany generate? Because they're trying to say, Germany does a lot with coal still, and that their renewable energy program hasn't done very well. Well, in reality, Germany has done extremely well in producing renewable energy to offset anything to do with coal. As a friend of mine made a really good point, he says, if we're not 100% renewable energy, but we're 80% renewable energy and 20% say natural gas, so be it. It's better than 100% natural gas or coal. We're still offsetting quite a bit, and Germany's really done that. UK as well. They've offset at 55% a bunch of times now with their wind power. Another point, the misinformation: solar and wind energy components have a carbon footprint as large as fossil fuels. If you do some Googling, there's some great articles that rebut all of this in the documentary and actually show how much carbon footprint a coal plant has, a natural gas plant has. It's huge when you compare it to solar and wind. Yes, there is a consequence when you produce solar panels and wind. All energy has a consequence. We have to get that in our minds that, you want to build a house, you're probably going to have to cut down a few trees. But in this case with the solar and wind, once they are done, then the amount of energy that they produce well exceeds what it took to actually produce a solar panel or a wind turbine. This was interesting. Tesla factories generate 100% of their own electricity, so why are they connected to the grid? Well, again, I found that kind of a bit of a dumb question, because as much as we would like to say that, yeah, we're totally off the grid, I don't think any company in the world is ever not going to be connected to the grid. And a couple of reasons. Number one is, just like Germany was showing that they can produce excess, well, that power has to go to the grid to go somewhere where it can be used. So, the Tesla factory, when they have their days that they're producing more than they need, well, they're basically putting it back to the grid. So they have to be connected. And of course, the other thing is, what happens if for some reason they're not producing enough and they do need to borrow from the grid? Well, when they borrow from the grid, does that mean it's coal or natural gas or anything like that? No, it could still be renewable energy from a different source, a different area. So as you can see, like I'm, myself and a lot of others are really fired up about this documentary, that they would release this, because it really muddies the water of what we're trying to achieve with renewable energy. I will say a couple of points that are good about the documentary that, I think all of us need to look at is our consumption. We have what's called Earth Overshoot Day, which is basically the day that we have used the amount of resources that the Earth can produce, so to speak, to sustain us. And every year that date goes back further and further. So we were in July, I think we're now in June, for the amount that we consume. So I will say to that, yeah, we've got to lower our consumption on that aspect. They do talk about overpopulation as well. There's a lot of different studies in regards to that, which, I'll let the people can research on their own on that to have their own take. But basically what I think I have to come across and say is, like, I say don't watch this documentary, but I will warn you, it's frustrating to watch. And I think by the end of it, I felt like I lost not only my time watching this documentary, but now I'm like losing my time fighting
You're fuming about it in your head.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're just wanting to see, we told you. But it's like, here's another thing. One last thing, too, about this documentary. They don't offer any solutions. They don't say, well, instead of using renewable energy, are we going back to oil, gas, and coal? Like, they don't really offer any solutions. They don't talk about geothermal. They do talk about biomass, which is basically the burning of trees. And even they talk about tires, which I will agree is not the best for something like that. But I think we've moved past this. We got solar panels that are doing like 400 or 500 watts a panel now, compared to 10 years ago, they were showing panels, I think, that barely could do 60 or 80 watts with the same size. So yeah.
It's something that it really makes you wonder what their purpose was to release this documentary maybe 8 years after most of it was collected, the information for it was collected, and to show it on Earth Day and to offer no solutions.
Yeah.
It's really weird that this was released, and it's kind of weird that Michael Moore, who seems to be a bit of a champion for the underdog and a bit of a champion for the ecology, was part of this project. But I was telling Ian that there's been a rebuttal on recently on YouTube where Michael responds to this. Haven't had a chance to watch that, but might be something for you to research as well if you did happen to be frustrated with the video and want to see what someone's thought process was about it.
Yeah. The picture that I'm showing here too, this is the other, I have to bring this up because it's also too, is like, why would you put out a documentary when research wise it's so easy for, any person to go check out? But if you went on Google Earth and you looked at the picture of these wind turbines that's in Hawaii, those turbines do not exist there anymore. It's actually a field for grazing cows. And those turbines were taken down because basically they were kind of an initial technology, if you want to say. And in Hawaii, they took the turbines down. They got invested in a lot better technology, more efficient turbines, and also on a part of the island that had way better wind. So if you did a Google Earth search where this location is, you see that those turbines aren't there anymore. And they also show a place in California that supposedly was building solar panels, and they had all this field of solar panels, but then they pulled them all down because they weren't doing so well. And then the company, I think they said, went bankrupt. And stuff. If you look on Google Earth, you'll see that all those panels have been replaced with brand new panels that are way more efficient, but they don't show you that in the documentary. They make it look like it's a ghost town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah. All right. So there you go. There is the news.
Very good. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah.
Again, if you enjoyed this, please give us the thumbs up in YouTube, and we will see if we can put maybe another one together in another month. Hopefully everyone out there is safe and your families are safe. You're out helping each other. This pandemic is lasting much longer than any of us care to be a part of it, I'm sure. But the more we stick together, the better it's going to be. So let's bunker down and let's get through this together and help each other.
Flatten the curve.
Very good. All right, everyone. Have yourselves a good evening. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.